Assembly. Joel Rubin, who served as the Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for the Obama administration, with us now. Joel, good to see you. How notable are these meetings? I mean, they are very significant, but are they more symbolic today?
Well, Adrian, it's great to be with you. The UN General Assembly meetings are always very important because they send a signal that the world is coming together in one location annually to talk about the issues facing all of us collectively. Remember, the United Nations was founded basically by the United States after World War II to create a mechanism for countries to resolve conflicts and problems and promote peace and security. So it doesn't really have any hard authority directly to tell countries what to do, but it does give a venue for discussing the hard issues. And that's why it's really important for President Biden to be there today, to show American leadership, to meet with leaders with whom he is having discussions and hard discussions, and also to try to get countries on the record about where they stand on hard issues, especially related to the war between Russia and Ukraine.
Right. He's expected to ask for more money, billions of dollars, as the U.S., especially Americans who have not seen an end in sight here, are getting exhausted because of the price tag. Biden will be the first U.S. president to ever meet with the leaders of the 5 Central Asian nations known as the STANs, former Soviet states, including Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan. Russia and China will be watching. What is expected to happen? Thank you. I know a lot of those are
the STANs.
Hard to pronounce. That's why they call them the STANs. But what could come from that meeting that's so significant?
I mean, this is an interesting window right now, a potential opportunity for the United States to carve out the STANs and other countries who traditionally have had close relations with Russia. They were part of the Soviet Union at one point. And so there are countries that matter to Russia, just like Ukraine and just like the Baltics. And President Biden will be the only major world leader there from the permanent members of the Security Council. There are 5 countries there. That means Russia and China, who are members of the permanent members. They're not going to have their leaders there. So President Biden, by doing these meetings, can try to cultivate different relationships and alliances, put Russia on notice, and also, of course, China as well, that the United States isn't sitting back passively and is engaging countries who want to have alliances and relationships with us. And that's a positive competition and a chance to really build those ties that do make Russia and China a bit nervous.
It's interesting that this is the first for a U.S. president when the fall of the Soviet Union happened so long ago. Quite interesting, actually. But it's more than a rallying cry. Biden is one of 5 major UN leaders with veto power, yet he's the only one attending in person. France isn't there, Britain, Russia, or China. So what does that mean?
Yeah, it's, well, first and foremost for China, President Xi, he seems to be having a lot of problems internally. There's a lot of shuffling of leadership. He isn't clearly anxious to be there. And then Vladimir Putin, who knows if he'd be worried about getting picked up potentially and sent to The Hague. Regarding the UK and France, that seems they're coming up with excuses about domestic politics. But at the end of the day, all the world leaders will be there. If not these leaders, their representatives will be there. And it's an opportunity to meet. When I served at the State Department, I was up in New York at these meetings. There are so many venues for negotiations, conversations, and discussions, bilaterally, multilaterally, as you pointed out with the STANs, that a lot of business gets done. And it just means that the United States has a greater voice at the table now with our leader there and the other permanent members not. And that's a win for the United States.
Well, speaking of voice at the table, there's been a lot of criticism of President Biden lately, lower approval ratings, and then stumbles and fumbles with his speech. One could attribute it to his age. One could attribute it to his mental capacity or just the fact that he put his foot in his mouth again. How much is at stake here, especially if he doesn't hit all of his talking points sharply?
Yeah, I'm not worried. President Biden delivers. He's been delivering for the American people for 2.5 years. He's a strong speaker from the plenary. He has done this before. He was a senator for nearly 4 decades and is used to giving these speeches. And we saw similar arguments being made before the State of the Union speech last year, and then he knocked it out of the park and really put Republicans on the defensive. So I'm sure he's going to give a great speech like he always does on foreign policy. That's his real sweet spot, and he's going to show once again why he's the right leader right now at this moment for the United States in this global forum.
It'll be interesting to see how much it moves the needle ahead of the 2024 election. Every appearance, every action that he takes moving forward matters. Thank you, Joel Rubin, as always.
Thanks, Adrian.